welcome to the Merri-Cast, the show that puts you on the fast track to confidence in starting and growing your business. Liz Sebag-Montefiore is the co-founder of career and talent management consultancy 1080. Along with current CEO Michael Moran, they have steered the growth of the business for around 13 years now. And this June, Liz takes over as CEO, so it seems like the perfect moment to talk to her about her entrepreneurial journey and the challenges ahead. Now, Liz has to be the best practitioner I've ever met in the art of networking, and this isn't about the number of business cards or LinkedIn connections that she has, although I'm sure she's got plenty of those, but because she's somebody who takes a genuine interest in whoever happens to be in front of her. To me, it's a fundamental strength behind her success. And she got lots of practice at this early on. And Liz started by telling me in this interview that she came out of a history of arts degree at St Andrews and straight into her first job at the National Gallery. And there, young Liz learnt to appreciate different perspectives, fascinated by people and what made them tick. She went on to work for an HR consultancy prior to the birth of 1080. And at this point, she told me, an entrepreneurial career wasn't really part of the roadmap. But then she met two people who fundamentally changed her thinking.
One was a senior leader who gave me responsibility really early on. And without this person, I don't think I'd be where I am to date. And the other was having a coach who really helped me understand what my strengths were and also to overcome fear and to start to overcome self-belief issues and confidence issues. So these two key people I now look back on as an entrepreneur and think without them, I don't think I'd be where I am to date.
And I mean, the fear thing is particularly interesting because it's a factor that affects a lot of entrepreneurs. We have an image of, in the media of these kind of fearless, brave sort of entrepreneurs. But so what were they saying to you? I mean, what were they saying to you about sort of overcoming? And was it something that was dominating your thinking at that point and they just found mechanisms to help you sort of push it away?
It was more around believing in myself and also going with your gut. And rather than worrying about what other people think, the best way of learning is through taking charge and making mistakes and being okay with making those mistakes, because often the best way of learning is learning through making these mistakes. And that's really the value of what the coach was saying. Feel the fear and do it anyway, but also feeling comfortable by being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I can't imagine for me personally, any more uncomfortable place than working in an art gallery sort of earlier on. I mean, was that an area in which I suppose you must have been sort of dealing with all sorts, great life experience, having to deal with a whole bunch of different people?
I loved it. And actually, I was the only female in my department because I started off in the art handling department. So you can imagine all of these strong men moving pictures all around the gallery. But it was really fascinating seeing how it worked, seeing how a gallery worked, but behind the scenes and the effort that went into curating an exhibition. And I think for me, one of my strengths is building relationships and networking. And it gave me the confidence in my first ever role post-university around actually being able to talk to anyone through my passion of art history.
Yeah, so it was a bit of your degree that you were able to sort of directly apply. At this stage, was young Liz thinking, I want to be an entrepreneur? Or was that miles away? You seem to indicate that it was a little way away at that point.
At this stage, setting up a business, I hadn't even thought of, because what I really wanted was financial stability. I wanted to put money towards a first flat. So that was more on my radar. I got married 6 years into my working career. And I'd say once I returned from honeymoon, that's when things started to change. I started to get frustrated with a few things, such as not being able to make decisions when I wanted to make decisions, or, a client would come to me with a need. So I'd have to get sign off from someone more senior than me, and they took their time to come back. I'd then go back to the client and the need had gone. So this sense of constraint really stayed with me and it started to irritate me. So I think I wanted to be more agile. I wanted to be more client responsive. And over time, that led me to realize, wouldn't it be exciting working for myself?
and I could sense then in this early career thing, this growing importance. Were you actually thinking, well, things don't really have to be this way if I was my own boss? But how long did you sort of tolerate that? How long did you put up for that? Do you remember the moment when you first started to feel like that? And what was the gap between that and when you kind of went and took the plunge?
Yeah, it was more, I got promoted. So that helped because I had more influence and I could make more decisions because those were the two routes. Either you get promoted or move out. But what really was the how it all happened was when Michael Moran, who was the then CEO of Fairplace, I was a business developer in his team. He was put on garden leave, and he always says it was the best invention of HR, garden leave. And he was out for a year, and I stayed in touch with him because we have an excellent relationship. And it was him who came up with the idea and said, if I start a business, would you like to be part of it from the very start? And I was honored that he'd invited, I was one of the 3 others that he invited. And my heart was saying, yes, this is the right thing to do. This would give me everything I wanted. I could make my decisions. I could choose what I do. You can say no to clients. You're in control of your own future. And I was really, really excited about doing it. But my current job made it slightly trickier because I was being coached to stay. So I had my heart in one thing, my head the other, and yet I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to leave and go. So, what made me decide to go with Michael and leave? Well, it was 3 things. The first was the excitement of startup life. I was really, really wanting that. The second was the fact about being on a board because I'd never had that experience. And the third was about having skin in the game and having shares. So I think all of those 3 things combined that I couldn't get from my existing company gave me the motivation to think I should go with my gut and follow Michael. And it really was the best decision. So I mentioned 4 of us started it, and we all had different strengths and skills. Mine, as I said before, was around the relationship building, the networking, but you don't want to stand on other people's toes. I had the most to learn because I was the youngest. We were 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, so a little bit of a diversity there. But it was a really fun, exciting start to 2012.
These days, people would say that if you had people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you'd have a perfectly diverse, age workforce, at that point. What about the other side of the ledger, though? I could see you talked about excitement, being on a board, and skin in the game. But what was on the other side of the ledger? Was there anything there thinking, not sure, not sure? Was there anything holding you back at that point? I'm sure listeners would be interested to know what the counter argument was.
Yeah, the counter argument for me was around the stability. Where's the money going to come from? It was also around fear of failure. What if it goes wrong? How do I say, for my own personal brand, how do I tell that story? What could that be like? And just the unknown. But I think because I'd got my flat, I was sorted, I was paying my mortgage, and my husband and I were in it together. I've just learned in life, take risks and enjoy, learn from your mistakes. So that I think I had all these ups and downs thinking, what about this? What about this? But I realized the more benefit was on the setting up your own business and giving it a go.
And you mentioned the sort of early mentors as sort of maybe if you hadn't have met them at that point, then maybe you wouldn't have had quite such a sort of zeal for sort of jumping forward. So I guess one thing led to another. Is that fair?
One thing led to another, and just the mentors saying, believe in yourself, you can do it, and giving me the confidence. Because I think earlier on in my career, I definitely lacked confidence. I always thought more of the negatives. What if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? And my mentor was there to teach me and make me think differently, as in, well, what if it goes right? And that was really the trick to thinking, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
working with people who absolutely adored. I think it wasn't like I was starting out on my own because I had a team. We were 4 of us with very complementary skills. It worked really well. So that sense of loneliness as well that I think some people say when they're entrepreneurs. For me, I didn't have that because we could bounce ideas off each other and almost mentor each other.
Yeah. And that's a tremendously important thing and probably quite a very interesting angle in terms of this interview about, you weren't on your own. There was there was a risk, but there was a shared risk in doing it. Can you remember day one? I mean, was day one sort of busy, uneventful? I mean, you were just sitting there thinking, okay, we're off. What do we do now? I mean, or was there a plan already in place? Was it like you, laptop, Michael, the others, or were you kind of already had your head in it on day one?
Day one, I still remember it was my first day I'd ever worked from home. And that for me, being so extroverted, I remember thinking, it just felt different. to me. And what we did was the four of us all met up in a coffee shop, because back then we couldn't really afford an office. And we all were brainstorming. We'd already had conversations, but it was more around the plans and the marketing and who was in charge. I took on the marketing side of things and would do the various tweets and LinkedIn posts. And it was more on how can we bring clients in? And it was very interesting because clients I thought that would come didn't, and the ones I thought that I thought wouldn't come did. So as an example, we were day 3 in our business and we were pitching for NHS Direct when they were losing their 911 support. And as part of the tender, they said, please provide your past 3 years financials. We had 1 month. And we thought, I think this is unlikely, but we did have a relationship with one of the many decision makers, so we weren't completely cold. And fast forward the story, we did win it. And it was this real, it gave me the confidence to think it doesn't matter how many years in you are into starting your business, because if you've got the brand and you've got the gravitas and they know you can do it, it was the best win for me. And we asked about 6 months in the client, and we said, can we just ask you, why was it that you chose us when you had 3 people that could do it? And they said the feedback to us was, anyone could have done it, but because you had no clients, we knew you'd do anything and everything, go above board. So it was just interesting feedback for us to take on board.
That is really interesting because very often, on the one side, the person charged with hiring you or not hiring you might go for the safe decision, if you like, the established provider, you're not going to get fired for hiring these people that you've used before. But no, that's really great, that they actually early on sort of said, well, actually, this is unique. This is slightly different. They seem all right, and so we're going to work with them. And also, we know that they're the first client, so that's a good thing. So that's great for the first client. But then, as clients start to come on board, and how did it then start to pan out? Your second client, your third client, your fourth client comes on board. Then your role, I'm guessing, changed from sort of just being about marketing to also being about client delivery, because I guess at that stage there was no one else to do it in those early days.
Yes, well, we had some relationships, some associate relationships with coaches who we'd worked with previously. But yeah, you're right. When it was just the 4 of us, and the 4 of us were all accredited coaches, and we were all doing business development. At the start, we were working in pairs because that people often gel with different people. But I would say the one thing I also learned is that people buy people. And that's been a huge principle for our business, because out of the clients that we trade with, we always trade between now, fast forward 13 years, between 80 and 90 corporate clients a year, and 98% of them come through referrals or recommendations. So that's a huge advocate, I think, to the work that we do. Sometimes it's the end user moving on, the HR director being HR director of a new company, or we also use ambassadors, so people who've been through our service and then want to recommend us when they land in their new job. So that's at the moment how we typically win business.
Okay, and we should say at this point, we could probably talk a little bit about what 1080 does, maybe what 1080 did at the start and what it does now. Actually, let's just pen a little picture for the listeners in terms of how the business itself has evolved over the period.
Yeah, so we focus on 3 main products. We've got outplacement and career transition, career management, and then finally leadership and management development. And within that, for us, sits executive coaching, team coaching, external mentoring, and the wider management and leadership development programs. We really want this balance of books, because depending on what the market is doing, so we always know there's something attractive for the person to buy. But when we first started, outplacement was easily 70% of the business. And now it's only 25% of the business, and executive coaching has been on the up. We've also introduced some clever technology. So we got Fuel 50, which is a tool that helps employees come out with a career plan. And then we've also got a coaching and mentoring app that allows coaches and mentors to select their mentor or coach, and there's a resources section at the back end for people. So I'd say embedding technology into a client has been successful, and we really want that to be 10% of our revenues, so you can almost make money while you're asleep. So that's our target. We also have been carrying out research and asked our clients in 3 to 5 years what they think they'll be buying, and well-being came up, and obviously the plethora of what that means, from mindfulness to one-to-one sessions on imposter syndrome. So we're next week launching a personal learning account for wellbeing products. And I'd say what really changed how the business has evolved is pre-COVID, everything was face-to-face. and workshops were face-to-face, coaching was face-to-face. And then, of course, when everyone went into lockdown and everything had to be virtual, for us as a business, it opened up lots of opportunities to pitch for work that was global. So we won the United Nations account, and last month we've been delivering in Afghanistan and Mongolia because it's possible to do from one's house. So that's been a big change.
So there aren't many silver linings to the pandemic, but this was one for a lot of people, in terms of being able to, geography suddenly didn't mean so much and so on. Why, I mean, has your own sort of passion within the business sort of evolved during this time? Because you started as a co-founder, and very often that means kind of doing more or less everything with everyone, at the beginning, and then you got your associates coming in. Have there been new loves in terms of professional love sort of coming into your business, that you've actually developed a passion? Has it been for marketing? Has it been for, sort of the structure of the business? Have things moved up the radar for you personally, as you personally have evolved?
I'd say yes, mainly for coaching. I trained as an executive coach in lockdown. I'd previously trained at Fairplace about 15 years ago as a career coach. So I had that career coaching basis for a number of years, and I'd always wanted to become an executive coach. But also, being a working mother of two, primary school boys, I never know when the right time is to do development. Given I'm always coaching people around their own development, I think it's very good to keep current and think about me. But with executive coaching, I did the course during lockdown, and I'm so passionate about it because I can really see firsthand the difference it can make. And I think it probably is because it used to be one of the smaller pieces of the business, smaller chunks, and now it's the largest. And clients or corporate clients want to buy it. There is investment in executive coaching.
Now your role is changing again, though. So are you having to let go a little bit on the executive coaching? Because we'll move on to what's going to be happening in a minute, but your responsibilities are soon to change. So are you going to have to is there going to be enough time to do that?
I will need to reevaluate how I spend my time. One of the exercises I do as an entrepreneur is look back and reflect on each week, thinking, how did I spend my time? And was that time well spent? Because I do some pro bono coaching sessions. I'm also a trustee of a local charity. I do paid coaching sessions. I do strategy of the business development. So I do wear many hats at work, but coaching, I think, will need to shrink for a bit, because also we have built in a team of 65 associates who work all self-employed for us. So that is something I think I do see will shrinking. But also we've got some great back office people in our team who are now picking up a number of things. So one thing I used to do was to do a lot of these setting up for success calls. So when a coachee has been given a coach, I will do that initial call to understand what success would look like, what type of coach. And I really enjoy doing that because typically they're C-suite people and I'm learning about the themes, about what people want to be coached on. But actually, my mentor is challenging me, saying, what's going to go? So I have handed that over to other people. So I am constantly thinking things do need to evolve, and we've got a great team. And also it means I'm empowering others, because sometimes when you see it at that end, a lot of people that don't like delegating find it hard. Actually, I'm seeing it as empowering others to learn new skills.
So is that the hardest thing that you've found to let go? Because a lot of the entrepreneurial challenges are about letting go or not doing things. Do you think that's the hardest thing? Is there anything else that you're having to let go at all?
I find letting go quite hard, but I have seen the results the other end, thinking I should have done this earlier. It was just I like being in control. I like knowing what's happening. But actually now I realize it's just the high level I need, because I do not need the detail. So I think that letting go was definitely the biggest challenge for me. And also, as you step up, it's around that having difficult conversations, knowing that you want a long-term relationship with them. So treating them with dignity and respect is the best way to go about having these difficult conversations. But I think as you step up, there are a number of things that one needs to take on. Resilience is huge as a leader, knowing that you're not going to win everything or you get knocked down. But I think that, as Michael calls it, the Chumbawamba effect, I get knocked down, but I get up again, is what I tend to have at the back of my mind, thinking, actually, don't let this one thing dip. Let's see it as a positive, and what can I learn from it?
Chumbawamba effect. I'm not going to forget that one in a hurry. That's that's excellent. The relationship between you and Michael has evolved. I mean, we might as well say it now. Is that in the summer you're going to be taking over as CEO of the business. Now, how has your relationship with Michael sort of changed over time? I know he's a mentor to you and a good friend and so on, but it's not easy being in that situation, where, Michael has been the sort of CEO from sort of day one. I mean, how has the relationship changed over time? And have you sort of talked about how it might change again? Because it's not an easy thing to do to take over to someone, and Michael's not retiring, sort of. So, I mean, how is that going to work?
Michael and I have had regular conversations, you can imagine, over the last 2 years, which has been really lovely because I think it's helped him with the letting go, but also helped me with the managing expectations and what he wants and what I want and what's right for the business. So it's been really open and transparent. And I've also had a coach to help me as well. And I've also I've wanted a female mentor who's got experience of growing businesses. So I start with her just after Easter. And I think this amalgamation of all this support I've had and really helps me in a safe space work out how is this going to work out. But I think because we've had such, and we've also got, I should say, a fantastic board. Our Neds are great. And so we've been working really closely as a board to talk about the future. And Michael has been really clear about what he's wanting to focus on. We've just formed this partnership with a European hub, and he wants to carry on learning. So he will be managing that and also coaching and mentoring, which is what he loves. And I will be doing the day-to-day running of the business, stepping up, looking strategically around what's our strategy. We've got a plan. We've got quite a clear strategy that we've had. It's our 3 to 5 year strategy, and we're now 3 years in. So I don't see it changing hugely in the last couple of years. But one of the arms, which is partnerships, what we do know is new partners can come on board and other ones drop off. But the theme of partnerships, I believe, will still be there. And that's how, for instance, we actually won the United Nations account, because that came through our partnership with Fuel 50, whereas they provide the tech and we can do the consulting. So I do very much see our 3 strands, which are partnerships, selling more than one product to an existing client, and technology being the same for the next couple of years. I just think there'll be more tweaks.
Okay, so what about style though? Do you think you will want to imprint your own sort of style of leadership on that? We don't need to talk about the substance because it sounds like that's going to be sort of fairly similar, albeit with more partnerships. But what do you think you would bring in terms of a slightly different style of leadership?
Well, I also think Michael and I are very different people. Even though we've got shared values, which is crucial when you start a business, we are very different people. We're different generations. He's male, I'm female. People come to us with different things. I think, Michael gets on with certain people and I get on better with certain people. And that's why when we pitch together, we hope that the recipient is going to gel with one of us. But I absolutely want to be authentic to myself, which is really important, and just be me as a leader. And I am who I am. I don't think I'm going to change. And in all honesty, I've been working alongside Michael for the last year or so in this role, as he's been helping me prep for it. So he's been such a fantastic support. But I think he knows as well that I'm going to be my own person and do things my own way in my own style. And what is lovely is I used to have such low confidence, thinking I could never do this. And now suddenly it's only a month or 2 away, and I'm excited to get started.
Well, and what I hope, and I'm just going to inject a personal note here, is that I really hope that, in terms of running the business, that one of your major strengths, that, as I see it, is the networking sort of side of things. So I hope you'll be getting out and about more, because listeners, I've never seen a better networker than Liz, going out there. And as you've used the A word, authentic, in there, and I think there's a sort of deep and genuine interest in people and their situations, which has got to be a great starting point for winning business in the first place, or even if you're not winning business, just being genuine sort of about it. So I would sort of add in my little sort of tuppence work. I mean, you are still going to get out as much, I hope.
Absolutely, and that's what I love, being on the extroverted side. I can't be indoors all day. I love getting out. And also learning, hearing about themes, what's going on in the market, what are people talking about? I just love that knowledge that I pick up from my meetings, whether it's coaching someone or whether it's having a business development call.
Yeah. So, I mean, does the title sort of CEO scare you at all? Does it sort of make you, I know you've said, you've kind of learned not to, but it's a lot of preconceptions about that title, or are you just going to be Liz with the title?
I'm going to be Liz in the title. I've never practiced using those words yet, but it seems quite funny to ask. It's a really interesting question. I'll get used to it, is what I'll say. I never thought it would come true, but I think as time goes on, I think I'm just more confident being Liz, and people know me as Liz rather than CEO Liz.
Okay, right. Okay. And looking back, what would you be saying to young Liz sort of right now, if you're looking at the position that you're, well, I mean, the role you have, yes, that's one thing, but it's a title, but the sort of the person that you've become within an entrepreneurial environment, what would you say to young Liz right now, about advice, about how you're going to become you, Liz, right now?
So I'd say take risks in order to grow. I'd also say think outside of the box and be creative. And I'd also say be human and don't be afraid to show vulnerabilities.
Right. And when you say think outside the box, I mean, is there an example of that where, you've maybe sort of reached a solution with Michael or others and so on? I mean, just, where things have, maybe it wasn't the first solution you thought of, but you kind of found something a bit novel or imaginative.
About just doing things differently. What are your USPs? There are so many similar competitors. Competitors effectively provide coaching, but how can we be unique? How can we stand out? And I think it's easier in a smaller business because obviously in the larger ones, you've got rules and regulations. So as an example, when we're pitching for work in outplacement, rather than just doing a price per person, we might do an unlimited program where we will, and it's a risk to take as a business, but we will support people until they land, because we know that some people will need 20 hours of support, but we also know that people might only need 3. So it's a nice message for a company to say, we are using a supplier who will support you until you land. It relaxes them. They think, well, I'm not as, it's an easier message to deliver, but it's a risk to take. But I enjoy thinking differently.
Okay. And if there were, just to finish off then, if there was one thing that you look back and think that took me too long to learn that lesson, and then something else that you wish you'd known at the start.
For me, it'd be go with your gut, i.e., if you're pitching for work, don't always think, I must go for it, I must go for it. Think, is it part of what you want to be known for? Is it your core offering? And actually, how many days of time will it take you prepping, pitching when you're a small business? Is it worth it? Now, looking back at my new self now, I make so many more decisions around, no, it's not worth it. I'm being proud of that decision.
Go with your gut and be proud about it. How many times do we wish we had taken the instinctive decision that we felt was the right one, only to be talked around into something that wasn't? So many other things stood out for me in that interview with Liz, and I hope for you too. Top of the list for me personally was Liz's honesty about early struggles with confidence and how she found the courage to do and try things early on in her career. It's a lesson for anyone out there who is listening and maybe feeling that fear right now. Just go out and do it anyway. I mean, because we seldom regret the things that we do, only those that we don't. And maybe it's my age, but I personally love her reference to the Chumbawamba effect. Yes, if she gets knocked down, she gets up again. So much about being an entrepreneur is about resilience in taking the knocks and still moving forward. And finally, as she steps into the CEO role this summer, how will Liz lead? I'm going to be me, I think she said, and that's the best possible answer to give and the best place to start. So thank you to Liz for being such an incredible guest, and thank you to you, our growing band of listeners. We love your feedback on the show, so do keep letting us know what you think in our LinkedIn posts, and if you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate and review through your usual podcast provider. And if you want to find out more about the Merri-Cast or our business Merriborn, look for me, Trevor Meriden, or Merriborn on LinkedIn. Don't forget to join us for our next episode, but until then, thanks for listening.